So, you need to write an argument. You might be asking yourself, how do I do that? Or, more importantly, what does a Toulmin outline have to do with argument? And how can it help you write a great one? Well, if those are your questions, keep watching, because this presentation is designed to answer those questions. First, you need to understand how Toulmin was created. It was created with the courtroom model in mind. Lawyers have to make some very difficult arguments, and they use Toulmin to help them do it. So what are those parts of Toulmin? Well, they're pretty simple. There are claims, reasons and grounds, and warrants and backing. As you can see, all of these are connected to each other with claims at the very top. Claims are what we start with. We should do something. And then the reasons support that. We should do this because, and then the grounds support that. Here's the evidence why we should do it. And then underneath that, we have the warrants. These are the things that we agree on already, or that we're at least assuming that we agree on already. And the backing shows evidence that we agree on those things. It's really important to consider the warrants, because if the audience and us don't share some common values, it's very unlikely that they're going to accept our overall argument. Another important part of Toulmin to consider is the rebuttals. Rebuttals are basically what helps us to think about the other side of the argument, where they're coming from, or how they might even attack us. For instance, if they were looking at our reasons and grounds, they might say, you know, those reasons aren't valid, or there are stronger reasons that we shouldn't, or we don't have all the information. And by anticipating some of these rebuttals, it can help us to make stronger reasons and grounds. Same thing is true for warrants and backing. Another side of the argument might say this warrant isn't valid because, or this warrant really isn't appropriate for the audience because. And again, that helps us to evaluate if we've really thought hard about our audience and who we're trying to persuade. So now that we've talked about Toulmin and the parts of it, it would help, I think, to go ahead and put this all together. What does a sample Toulmin outline look like when all of those parts are put together in one full argument? Well, I've created one for you. I have the claim up here on top. You should choose to attend X university. And then I have 3 specific reasons why, and then grounds and warrants and backings that support those reasons. So if I'm going to convince you, let's go ahead and look at those reasons in detail. First, reason 1. X has a beautiful, safe campus. My grounds to support that are that X's location was recently listed as one of the USA's safest cities and is rated in the top 10 on lists of best college towns. Also, X's campus is clean and surrounded by natural beauty. Now, those are pretty good grounds, but of course there's always a rebuttal. Someone else who's done their research might say, sure, X is safe and beautiful, but it's also located in a small rural town. There's really no nightlife, and the closest big city is over an hour away. Now, after reading or thinking about those rebuttals, I might be asking myself, are those should-nots compelling enough to address? Or should I focus more on finding a positive spin? In order to decide how much I want to address this rebuttal, I need to look at the rest of my argument. And the first place I want to look is my warrant. My warrant for this reason, that X has a beautiful, safe campus, is the assumption that safety and beauty are desirable qualities in a place where people live, work, and study, like a college campus. And the backing for that I would use would probably be somebody like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who's talked a lot about the importance of natural beauty, or maybe even Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he says, if we're going to do all the important stuff in our lives, like be moral and do problem solving and accept others, then we have to have basic foundational needs, and one of those is safety. And using that, I could then convince my audience that it's important. However, the other side might say, sure, safety is important, but some college students still have other values, like being close to home or family, or having access to a big city, or resources and nightlife, and having a culturally diverse area. Again, I have to ask myself, how much am I going to address these other reasons? Should I incorporate them in my argument or not? And again, I need to keep looking at the rest of my argument so that I have a better idea of how to answer that. My next reason why I think you should attend X university is that X is a leader in academic research. Again, I've done some research and I found that X invests a lot in preparing graduate students through participation in research projects and offers undergraduate research opportunities too. Of course, I'm going to look at the rebuttal for that, and that is that these research opportunities are unfortunately limited. Most of the funding goes to STEM subjects, which are like science, technology, engineering, and math, and online students don't have as many research opportunities as traditional college students. So again, I'm going to be asking myself, how am I going to address that? Well, first I'm going to think about my warrant. I'm going to try to establish with my audience that it's important for students to get real-world experience in research during college, because students who get research experience in college will be more successful in finding a job or getting into graduate schools. I'm going to assume that my audience believes that. But again, others might say, research opportunities don't always guarantee future job opportunities, and not all students will use research models in their careers. So the question now is, who's my audience? Looking at this rebuttal, and especially my last point, if I was writing to engineering students, this evidence is great. But what if I'm writing to a broader audience? What about piano performance majors, for instance? If they're part of my audience, I need to make sure that this point really fits their needs a little bit better. So I might want to revise this. Now let's look at my last point. My last reason for wanting you to come to X University is that X has many resources and extracurricular activities for students. Again, I've done my research and I found that X has exercise facilities, student housing, and meal plan options. There are also several student clubs, athletic events, and service opportunities for students. So that all sounds good. Possible rebuttal? Well, if somebody else has done their research, they might have found out that X University does have some resources like parking and computer labs and cheap dining options that aren't actually that great on campus. And so again, I need to think about, am I going to address those or not? Next thing I'm going to look at is my warrant. Extracurricular activities are an important facet of college life. I'm assuming that you believe that and as part of this argument. And my backing for that, of course, is that students are going to form lifelong friendships, have more balanced lives, and build important interpersonal skills through extracurricular activities. These activities may also help them to get to know faculty on campus, because it's a lot easier to talk to a professor in a club than it is to in class sometimes. However, there are, again, some rebuttals that I need to look at. Not all students are aware or interested in these activities, and some of these options actually make schooling more expensive. That's a tough one. I gotta ask myself, should I concede this point? And sometimes that is the best strategy. Sometimes rather than ignore it or try to put a positive spin on my own side, I have to really concede, yes, athletic events, extracurricular activities, those do increase student fees. They do make college tuition more expensive, but then I have to find a way to talk about why it's worth those costs. So overall, I hope that you can see that by looking at this Toulmin outline, I've been able to ask myself some pretty important questions. I've been able to look at who my audience really is and whether or not I need to include some of the rebuttals that I've found that might be used against the argument that I'm trying to make. Remember that the Toulmin outline is just the beginning. Eventually what you're going to do is take this information and make a much more complex argument where you again have an overall claim, but you're going to work through different parts of that claim where you talk about cause and effect perhaps, or ways that different ideas connect. You're going to evaluate things or dig deeper or even combine some different ideas. However, looking at a Toulmin argument first will help you to find the core of your argument and help you to shape things strongly from the very beginning. So remember, if you're in a tough position where you have to make a strong argument, be sure to look to Toulmin. Be sure that you consider your claims, your reason, grounds, warrants, backing, and rebuttals. And if you do, you'll be much more likely to make a strong argument that's really going to convince your audience. So good luck and keep Toulmin in mind.